Hello friends, before we start, let me ask you one simple question. Have you ever blamed an HPLC instrument and later realized, oh my god, the problem was actually mine? HPLC doesn't fail suddenly. It gives signals. We just need to understand them. Today we'll go through 20 real HPLC problems, the kind you face during routine QC, stability, validation, and regulatory pressure. Pause, think, and learn along with me. Let's start this video by looking at one of the most commonly faced issues, high back pressure. So friends, when we talk about the high back pressure, the first thing to understand is that the pressure never increases without a reason. Most commonly this happens due to blockage somewhere in the flow path. Inline filters and column frits are the first suspects. Over time, fine particles from mobile phase, samples, or even buffer salts start accumulating here. If buffers are not flushed properly, salts can precipitate, especially after shutdowns or at the weekends. Another major cause is particulate contamination because mobile phase or samples were not filtered properly. And finally, an old or contaminated column itself can offer resistance to flow, resulting in increased pressure. So whenever pressure increases, think of it as a restriction problem, not as an instrument failure. The golden rule in high pressure troubleshooting is isolation. First, disconnect the column and observe the system pressure. If the pressure drops, the issue is very clearly with the column. If it doesn't, then the problem lies in the system. Replace or clean the inline filters immediately. Always filter the mobile phase through 0.45 or 0.22 micron membrane filters and degas properly. If the column is suspected, flush it with suitable solvents as per the manufacturer's recommendation. If the flushing also doesn't help, column replacement is the safest option. Remember, preventing high pressure is always easier than correcting it. Next, let's look at another commonly faced issue, the low back pressure. The low back pressure often looks harmless, but it's equally serious. The most common cause is leakage in the tubing connections or the fittings. Even a small leak can reduce pressure significantly. Another cause is worn out pump seals, which fail to generate proper pressure. Air trapped inside the pump head is another frequent reason, especially after solvent change or poor priming. So low pressure usually indicates that the mobile phase is not flowing as intended through the system. Start with a visual inspection of all fittings and tubings. Tighten connections carefully, not too loose, not too tight. Prime the pump thoroughly to remove the trapped air. If the pressure still remains low, inspect and replace the pump seals if required. Never ignore low pressure because even though peaks may appear, the data quality will be unreliable. Another common issue analysts face is when no peaks are observed. This is one of the most frustrating problems for the analysts. Very often the cause is something simple like an incorrect detector wavelength. Sometimes the sample concentration is too low to be detected. Injector problems such as blocked needle or faulty rotor seal can also prevent sample from reaching the column. In some cases, the sample itself may have degraded before the injection has already been made. So before suspecting the instrument, always verify these basic factors. First, confirm the detector wavelength based on method or the UV scan. Inject a standard solution to confirm system response. Check injector performance. Ensure sample preparation is correct. If required, prepare a fresh sample and re-inject. Always troubleshoot logically instead of randomly changing the parameters. Many times during analysis, we come across the problem of split peaks. Split peaks usually indicate a disturbance at the column inlet. One major cause is void in the column packing. Another common reason is mismatch between sample diluent and mobile phase strength. Overloading the column by injecting too much volume can also cause peak splitting. These issues disturb uniform analyte movement inside the column. Ensure the sample diluent composition closely matches the mobile phase. Reduce injection volume and sample concentrations. If split peak persists even after corrections, the column may have developed a void and should be replaced. There is no other option. Never ignore split peaks, especially in the validated methods. Now let's look at another commonly observed issue, the tailing peaks. The tailing peaks are often related to secondary interactions inside the column. Contaminated columns, active selenol sites, or incorrect pH conditions are the common reasons. Gradual increase in tailing usually indicates column contamination. Sudden tailing often points towards incorrect pH or incorrect buffer strength. Flush the column using strong solvents as per column cleaning procedures. Adjust mobile phase pH within the column limits. Using N-capped columns can significantly reduce tailing for basic compounds. Always monitor tailing trend, not just one injection. After tailing, let's now take a look at another common issue, the peak fronting. The fronting peaks are typically caused by sample overloading. When too much analyte enters the column, the stationary phase becomes saturated. As a result, the front portion of the peak elutes faster, causing the fronting. This is more common when analysts increase concentration to improve the response. First, reduce the sample concentration and injection volume. Always pause and check whether the amount you are injecting is really required for this method. Next, make sure the column capacity matches the method requirements. Every column has a limit, and crossing that limit directly affects the peak shape. Always remember, good chromatography is about maintaining balance, not about pushing the system for maximum response. Many times during analysis, we notice the baseline starting to drift. A baseline drift generally indicates that the system has not yet stabilized. This usually happens when there are temperature fluctuations, insufficient equilibrium time, or when the detector lamp is aging. In gradient methods, baseline drift is even more common if the solvents are not properly equilibrated before starting the run. So whenever you see a drifting baseline, think of it as a sign that the system still needs some time to settle down. First, always allow sufficient equilibration time before starting injections. Rushing equilibration is one of the most common reasons for the baseline drift. Maintain a consistent column oven temperature throughout the analysis, especially for long sequences. Even small temperature variations can reflect as drift on the baseline. If the drift continues despite these controls, check the detector lamp condition and replace it if required. Let's now discuss another commonly encountered issue, a noisy baseline. The baseline noise occurs when there are disturbances in the signal detection. The most common contributors are air bubbles in the system, dirty or contaminated mobile phase, and a contaminated detector flow cell. If solvents are not properly degassed, the level of noise increases significantly. So whenever you see a noisy baseline, think of it as an unwanted interference entering your detection system. First, always filter and degas all solvents properly before use. This single step prevents many baseline noise issues. Next, purge the detector to ensure that any trapped air bubbles are completely removed from the flow cell. Even small bubbles can create significant signal disturbance. Finally, clean the detector flow cell regularly as per the approved SOPs to maintain consistent and reliable signal quality. At some points, most analysts encounter the problem of ghost peaks. Ghost peaks are observed even when no sample is injected, which can be confusing for the analysts. In most cases, these are caused by carryover from the previous injections or by a contaminated mobile phase or a contaminated glassware which was used to prepare the sample solutions. This problem becomes more prominent when the earlier samples are sticky or injected at high concentration. So when ghost peaks appear, always think about what was injected before and how clean the system is. Start by running black injections to confirm whether carryover is present. This helps clearly differentiate between true sample peaks and system-related residues. If carryover is confirmed, increase the needle wash cycles. Use stronger or more suitable wash solvents. This is especially important after analyzing sticky or high concentration samples. If the issue still persists, prepare a fresh mobile phase to rule out any contamination from the solvents. Another issue that is often observed is a shift in the retention time. RT shifts are a clear indication of inconsistency in the system. Even very small changes in mobile phase composition, flow rate, or the condition of the column can result in noticeable shifts in the RTs. One common but overlooked cause is improper solvent measurement during mobile phase preparation. So whenever retention time starts shifting, think about consistency in preparation before suspecting the instrument. Always prepare the mobile phase accurately and wherever possible, freshly. Even small errors in solvent measurement can lead to retention time shifts. Verify the pump flow rate regularly to ensure it is delivering the set flow accurately. Flow rate deviations directly affect retention behavior. If retention time continues to drift despite these controls, consider replacing aged columns as column performance naturally degrades over a period of time. Another commonly observed issue is the occurrence of the broad peaks. Broad peaks generally indicate a loss of chromatographic efficiency. This usually happens due to factors such as excess dead volume in the system, worn or deteriorated columns, or an incorrect flow rate. When peaks become broad, both resolution and sensitivity are reduced. So, broad peaks are an early warning sign that the system performance is declining. First, minimize tubing length. Avoid unnecessary extra connections in the system. Excess tubing increases dead volume and directly contributes to peak broadening. Next, replace deteriorated or aged columns, as column efficiency naturally decreases over time. A worn column cannot deliver sharp peaks even with correct conditions. Finally, optimize the flow rate according to the validated method and the column dimensions. An incorrect flow rate can significantly affect peak width and overall resolution. Sometimes we encounter a situation where the pump does not deliver the required flow. This problem is most commonly caused by an airlock in the pump, a blocked inlet filter, or a worn out pump seal. In such cases, the pump may appear to be running normally, but in reality, the mobile phase is not being delivered properly. So, whenever you notice that there is no flow despite the pump running, think of it as a flow delivery issue rather than a pump failure. Begin by priming the pump properly to remove any trapped air from the system. Proper priming is very essential to restore normal flow. Next, clean the inlet frit to remove any blockage or replace it if the cleaning is not effective. A blocked frit can prevent mobile phase from entering the pump. If the flow still doesn't recover after these steps, replace the pump seals, as worn seals can no longer generate sufficient pressure for proper flow delivery. Another commonly encountered issue is fluctuation in the system pressure. Pressure fluctuation is a clear indication of unstable flow within the system. This instability is most commonly caused by air bubbles in the mobile phase or by faulty check valves in the pump. When pressure is not stable, both retention time and reproducibility are affected. So, pressure fluctuation should always be treated as a flow stability issue that needs immediate attention. Ensure that all solvents are thoroughly degassed before use. Proper degassing helps eliminate air bubbles that can cause pressure fluctuations. If pressure instability continues, inspect the check valves carefully and replace them if required. Faulty check valves directly affect flow consistency and system performance. Carryover is another important concern that analysts often face. Carryover occurs when residues from previous injections remain in the system and affect subsequent runs. This issue is more common with potent, sticky, or highly absorptive analytes that tend to adhere to the injection pathway. When carryover is present, it can create false peaks or elevated responses in later injections, so it should always be addressed promptly. Enhance the wash steps by increasing the number of wash cycles and ensuring sufficient wash volume. Use appropriate wash solvents that are effective in removing the specific analyte residues. Carryover control is especially critical during method validation, as even small residues can impact accuracy, precision, and regulatory acceptance. Now, let's look at another important issue, peak area variation. Peak area variation is an indication of poor precision in the analysis. This commonly arises due to injection inconsistencies, sample instability over time, or issues related to the autosampler. When peak areas are not reproducible, it is important to identify which of these factors is affecting the consistency of the injections. Verify the injector performance to ensure that injection volumes are consistent and repeatable. Any variation at the injection stage directly reflects as a peak area variation. At the same time, ensure that the sample remains stable throughout the entire analysis period. Sample degradation during the run can significantly affect precision and result reliability. I am sure many of you have encountered the issue of negative peaks. Negative peaks occur when the sample absorbs less light than the mobile phase at the selected detection wavelength. This situation is most commonly observed when there is a mismatch between the sample diluent and the mobile phase. So when negative peaks appear, it usually indicates a solvent or a diluent related issue rather than a problem with the analyte itself. Ensure that the sample diluent closely matches the mobile phase composition. This helps avoid absorbance differences that can lead to negative peaks. Before starting the analysis, Re-zero the detector properly. This ensures that the baseline is correctly set and the detector response is balanced. Over a period of time, the column gradually starts to deteriorate. Columns gradually deteriorate due to factors such as pH abuse, improper washing after use, and continuous overuse beyond their recommended lifetime. This deterioration does not happen suddenly. The loss of performance is gradual but predictable. So, declining resolution, increased back pressure, or poor peak shape are often early signs of column aging. Always follow the column care SOP strictly, including proper washing, storage, and pH limits. Consistent column care helps extend column life and maintains reliable performance. Replace columns at appropriate time instead of waiting for a complete failure. Timely replacement is essential to protect data quality and ensure consistent results. Another issue that analysts sometimes face is detector saturation. Detector saturation occurs when the analyte concentration exceeds the operating range of the detector. In such cases, the detector can no longer respond proportionately, which results in flat or clipped peaks. When saturation happens, peak shape and quantitative accuracy are both compromised, so it should be addressed immediately. Dilute the samples appropriately so that the analyte concentration falls within the detector's linear range. Proper dilution helps restore accurate and proportional detector response. In addition, adjust the detector range or sensitivity settings as required to suit the concentration level being analyzed. These adjustments help prevent saturation and ensure reliable quantitative results. Another commonly encountered issue is software and integration errors. Incorrect integration parameters or manual manipulation of chromatograms can directly lead to data errors. The software itself does not create mistakes, it only follows the instructions provided by the user. So, whenever integration related issues are observed, the focus should be on reviewing the settings and user inputs rather than blaming the software. Always use validated integration settings that have been approved during method validation. This ensures consistent and reliable data processing. Once the method is finalized, lock the method to prevent unauthorized or accidental changes. Method locking is essential to maintain data integrity and regulatory compliance. So friends, last but not the least, let's discuss system suitability test failures. System suitability test failure is usually not caused by a single major issue. In most cases, it occurs due to multiple small problems acting together. Incomplete system equilibration or minor deviations in method conditions gradually accumulate, and together they lead to SST failure. So SST failure should always be viewed as a signal to review the overall system condition rather than one isolated parameter. So friends, whenever system suitability fails, review the entire system step by step instead of focusing on only one parameter. Look at the mobile phase, column condition, system equilibration, detector response, and recent changes made to the method. Identify and correct the root causes first and only then repeat the system suitability test. Avoid repeating SST without correction as it only wastes time and resources. Always remember, SST is a safety mechanism designed to protect data quality. It's not an obstacle in the analysis. HPLC troubleshooting is not about fear, it's about understanding. Once you learn to listen to the system, it stops troubling you and starts teaching you. If this video helped you, like, share with your lab team and subscribe to Pharma Health Insights. Comment below which HPLC problem challenges you the most. I'll be more than happy to answer all your questions and all your queries. Thanks. Till the next time.